to the honourable member for Pitt Meadows Maple Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to debate Bill C-22, an act to reduce poverty and to support the financial security of persons with disabilities by establishing the Canada Disability Benefit and making consequential amendments to the Income Tax Act. The government is attempting to create a Canada Disability Benefit, which is to supplement existing provincial benefits for low-income persons with disabilities, modeling after the Children's Child Benefit and Guaranteed Income Support. Conservatives, as we've heard, will support the Canada Disability Benefit at this time because we believe in principle that it's the government's intent to reduce poverty among Canadians living with disabilities. Conservatives believe strongly that government must do all that it can to provide the support for the most vulnerable among us. Au Canada, une personne sur...
In Canada, 1 in 5 people live with a disability. These people need our support in order to fully live their lives and fully participate in society, including when it comes to the labour market. Conservatives believe that all Canadians living with disabilities deserve to have rapid and timely access to benefits and services and are not penalised for going to work, as is too often the case today.
Conservatives believe that Canadians living with disabilities deserve timely access to benefits and services and are not penalised for going to work, as is so often the case today. The creation of the Canada Disability Benefit should consider the complex web of programs currently in place, which many Canadians with disabilities can result in actual benefit cuts and higher taxes because they work. And I know different ones on disability that just a little bit of work they're able to do, it helps them financially, but also it helps them psychologically and just their entire well-being. Too often, the Liberal government has pursued an Ottawa knows best approach, leaving many Canadians behind, trying to access federal supports and services. Conservatives believe the federal government should work with the provinces to ensure that federal programs do not impact or hurt Canadians and are working at cross purposes. We are concerned that applying for the Canadian Disability Benefit may result in difficult and bureaucratic processes, and Canadians are at the breaking point with government bureaucracy. There's a Service Canada office in the same block as mine, and every day there's lineups, people waiting for hours oftentimes to be able to get service or not. And this should not be. And so that is a concern that we have, that if we're bringing this new benefit, that there is timely access. The ArriveCan app is another example of just bureaucracy. Bottlenecks in our airports, cutting down tourism and international travel. This is on the Liberal government. As we wait further details on the Canada Disability Benefit, Canadians believe the Liberal government must ensure that Canadians who qualify are able to access their benefits in a timely fashion. Mr. Speaker, have you ever heard of the Potmakin villages? So the Potmakin villages. So the Potmakin villages were actually, it's named after Grigory Potmakin. He's a Russian aristocrat during the Catherine the Great. She's an empress of Russia in the 1700s. What he did was that he built these villages as the empress was going to visit the Crimea for the first time to show people that were living really well. They had nice houses. The only problem was that it was all fake. When they finished, when the empress stopped for the night, they would move this fake village to the next place, on and on. And what is my point in bringing this forward? Is that there are appearances. And my concern is that with our Liberal government is that they have some good things, good policies here in place, like we have right now with the Disability Act, and they're giving with one hand and taking away from the other. So much of what they're doing is actually undermining the most vulnerable of Canadians. Today, it was announced that the Consumer Price Index numbers showed the price of food going up 10.8%. It's a 40-year high. life is getting harder for Canadians. And so I think that there needs to be a little more consistency in the approach of the Liberal government supported by the NDP. A consistency, because we're not seeing that. Cost of goods and services are skyrocketing. Inflation is eating away at what Canadians can afford, what they're putting on their tables. Price of gasoline in Vancouver is $2 a litre, double from what it was a year ago. Compare that to Alberta, where it's 70 cents a litre cheaper. What's the difference? A lot of that's taxes. I have a suspicion that perhaps the Liberals don't really care about how that's impacting because, well, it's dirty fuel. Well, it impacts. I had someone I care about that come over our place just recently, and he's struggling with disabilities. Hard for him to make ends meet. He ran out of gas on the way to my place. Didn't have any money to put any gas on it. It's hurting the most vulnerable. These taxes, the carbon tax. The carbon tax. So it's putting a lot of pressure. And it goes, we see it on our bills, but we also see it, it's impacting farmers. They are having to pay these taxes. It goes on to the consumers. Everything is going more and more. Conservatives have said, no more new taxes. That's it. We need to be thinking of everybody. These consumption taxes, these taxes on CPP, on the EI, benefits that are just automatically going up. They hurt the most vulnerable. If they care, then they would stop the taxes and they watch their way they're spending the money, because it's really impacting our society. It's not just how much, if you're having an increase in your salary, it's your net income. Net income is your expenditures, after your, it is what you have at the end of the day. After all the payroll taxes come off, after all the other deductions, and the cost of living going up. So we do support. We support the Canada Disability Act. It's important. We're looking forward to bringing about improvements. We don't know the details. As a previous member mentioned, there is a lot of, what is it all about? In theory, it's good, and we want to help along this. But once again, the policies of the Liberals are undermining the Canadians. Give another policy they're doing with agriculture. They're looking at bringing a reduction by 30% of nitrogen in fertilizer. Yeah. So that has a big impact. I was at the Cranberry Days of my riding, and they're saying, it's not like we want to go put in this nitrogen. It is like that's an expensive cost for farmers, but it's important for productivity. So it's going to reduce. It's going to reduce how much they're able to produce, which is going to mean less produce, which is going to raise prices for those that can't afford it, especially. But no. Not to mention that nitrogen is the fourth most common material element in the universe after oxygen, carbon, hydrogen. So these things are important. And also the just being more careful with purchasing and printing money. This printing of money, let's just print more and more money, it is actually devaluing what people have, making it extremely expensive, making rent costs, making housing costs go up. I took this fellow out who is also on disabilities for lunch, and he was saying that he's struggling just to pay for medication. It's hard. There's policies, these lack of control, these taxes impact the poorest among us. So it's great that we're having this act, which I support, which we support, but let's make it comprehensive. Let's look at it all different angles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.